Brandon Macdonald, CEO of Fireweed Metals. We have a couple projects in Yukon, which I'm going to talk about here, and one in NWT. We're focused very much on the critical minerals space, which I think is an important part of our thesis and a key to how we operate. I'll summarize quickly. Maybe some of you, if you're pressed for time, only need the summary. And we've talked about how, particularly in the last panel, how depressed the market is for junior mining. One of the core aspects of the commodity cycle, and this commodity market cycle, is that a depressed period, particularly a protracted depressed period, creates a shortage of development projects and a long lead time for development projects, of course, we have in this space. And what that means is that a bull market is inevitable. As they say, oversupply cures high prices, and then undersupply cures low prices, right? So there's nothing to happen here but a bull market in metals. Does that come this year? Does it start this year? Is this the inflection point? Is it a gradual slow burn like it was in the early 2000s, which really took off under the Chinese driven super cycle? Hard to say, but it has to come. There is a massive underinvestment. The cupboard is bare for all large base metals, really, and really driven as well, not just by that normal cyclicality in the space, but also by this new, resource nationalism around critical metals, right? So you've got Western countries fairly being very concerned about the domination of China and other countries that are perhaps trading partners but not allies. And they want to see a Western supply of critical metals, combined with substantial stimulus, particularly following on COVID, really going to drive, certainly we think, investment and or spending on zinc, and it puts us in a pretty good position as Fireweed. So we have two best-in-class projects, our MacPass and Mactung project, as I'll get into here, really can punch with the best in terms of their respective commodities. We have very strong backers, the Lundin family now being a 20% shareholder, Teck, the world's third largest zinc miner, a significant shareholder, and we're getting a bit of credit for the hard work we've been doing. We have a little bit of our 2023 drill results still pending. We have a resource update for our MacPass zinc project due Q2, and we have an economic study for Mactung due hopefully Q2 as well. So it's going to be a very, very busy 2024 for us. As I said, pretty happy with the capital structure in terms of ownership. I think it's, I shudder to imagine where we'd be at without our core backers. The Lundin family, Larry Childress, Teck, et cetera, Ibera Capital have really driven this company in the last 2-3 years. It takes a little bit of time to get these bigger groups warmed up, but they've been key supporters of us. We do still now have about just under $17 million cash in the bank, which puts us in a pretty good situation, particularly considering our peers. Our key projects, and I'm really only going to touch on MacPass and Mactung today. Happy to talk about our Gaina project at our booth, which is just over there at some other point if you're interested. These are in Eastern Yukon Territory, Canada. Mactung actually spans the border, exists in both Yukon and NWT. We do benefit from road access to the project, which is essential. Yukon, a wide open space, large stretches of zero infrastructure. So to have a road access to the project is critical to not just keeping exploration costs manageable now, but also facilitating development in the future. As I said, this 2023 was big for us. In the last sort of 15 months, we've put together $50 million, which I think is pretty amazing given the state of the market. We finalized the acquisition of Mactung. That's something that contributes 150 million NAV to the company, of which we paid effectively 10 or 15 million. 10 million of that is backdated. We completed our largest ever drill program by about a factor of 3, so 3 times our previous ever largest drill program. Made a significant expansion at the boundary zone, built a new camp. The old camp, which we inherited and kind of Frankenstein built on it, and all the wisdom of the people who built it had put it in an avalanche zone. So it really limited our late season and early season ability to operate. So finally, with a new camp, well situated, no concerns of avalanches, allows us to get in earlier and hopefully stay later as well. We did some work at Gaina as well that did some good groundwork and geophysical validation of our drill targets. So, as I said, upcoming, more assays, mineral resource estimate, Mactung PEA, and our 2024 program, which is going to focus not just on continued step out of the noon zones, but a lot more generative work than we've done in the last few years. So to get started on our Mac Pass project, so you can see actually here, I recognize now the writing actually kind of obscures both the new and old camp here, but where it says Casca is the old camp, and where it says the at the top of the top line is the new camp. So you can see between the two the respective differences in avalanche risk in terms of one being at the bottom of a significant slope and the other one being at the top of a very nice gentle slope. Zinc, sometimes referred to as the original critical metal, perhaps a little bit unloved. If you don't understand what zinc is used for, it's predominantly galvanization. So this is in automobiles, infrastructure, et cetera, making steel resistant to rusting. Many other uses in terms of brass casting alloys, chemicals, including fertilizer, some emerging use cases in zinc air batteries, et cetera, that could be very important, particularly in grid scale storage. What's interesting about zinc is, in contrast, if I were to contrast it to copper, you look at the top 15 zinc mines as of 2022. As of today, 10 of those top 15 mines have a mine life 10 years or less. Now, some of these will see expansions. Red Dog, for example, has two pretty significant satellite deposits that I believe Teck is working on a PFS for one of them. And there's a couple that I know San Cristobal under new owners is likely to be extended as well. But this is a pretty dire situation when 10 of the top 15 zinc mines have a scheduled shutdown in 10 years or less. You contrast this to copper, and 1 out of the top 15 has a scheduled mine life of 10 years or less. So this puts in a pretty challenging situation where, Mac Pass, I think, could quite healthily be a top 10 global zinc mine for quite some time. Starts to look pretty essential when you look at the landscape of supply here. And the resource we published in Mac Pass of 2018 was already one of the largest zinc resources held by a junior. 11 million tons indicated, 39 million tons inferred at around 10% zinc equivalent. And, the economics wrapped around that were pretty good as well. But really what I want people to focus on is that was, we say 5 years ago, but it's actually 6 years of drilling since then. We've radically changed the project. I've talked about a triple-digit percentage in the resource, which I think is very possible in the coming resource estimate. We've done a huge amount of work at the known zones, discovering or the Boundary West zone now part of the boundary zone, and delineating that. Lots of additional engineering and a big commitment from the government on the access road, all of which we included in our capital in 2018. So the next studies for this project are going to be radically different than the last one. And so much of the resource growth has come from boundary zone. And this is a zone that we actually bought these claims off Teck. They had drilled it when they were Cominco back in the 80s and up to 1991. They were hitting these intermittent intervals of low grade. Our team in 2020 did a series of surveys, discovered a significant gravity anomaly to the west of where Cominco had been drilling, and made the discovery of the stratiform massive sulfides there, which have been driving our amazing drill results in the last few years. And it's this incredible significance there. 2019, our first hole's 230 meters of 4.5% zinc. Including the first 100 meters of that from surface, almost 9% zinc. The average open pit grade for zinc mines globally is less than 4%. So we're, shaping up to be a pretty significant open pit potential there. But it was the discovery of 2020 of this massive sulfide zone, which has really delivered our best-in-class drill results since then. So a hole in 2022, 124 meters of 12.5% zinc with a lead and silver credit there, was at the time our best ever drill hole in the project. And we thought, in terms of totality of the intersection, the best greenfield zinc, drill hole in probably 10 or 15 years. But we outdid ourselves in 2023. Hole 7 hit 2 intervals, so 2 stacked stratiform zones. In the first zone, it hit 80 meters of almost 12% zinc. In the lower zone, 118 meters of 15% zinc. So, this really completely shaking up this part of the deposit, highlighting the grade potential. And then hole 28 this year, which we released earlier this month, the lower zone of that, 144 meters of 14.5% zinc. So this is like really, in terms of global zinc intersections, there's nothing quite like this. This new zone at boundary, really delivering incredible results. And to look at it here, you can see Caminco was drilling kind of in the bottom right of that, these broad, lower grade, heterogeneous intervals, vein hosted material, occasional high grade breccia, but not really holding together. What you see in the purple there is kind of a projection to the surface of this near vertical stratiform zone where we're getting these super high grade results. And that's really been driving the value in this boundary zone discovery. And to kind of highlight this, we got a long section of the stratiform zone there, so kind of looking at it straight on, and you can see the varying thicknesses of that. But I think it's worth pointing out that although that zone delivers the best drill results, I want to kind of project it into 3D here, so you can see that it's not just that zone that drives the economics. So as we look at it in 3D, yeah, you can see the incredible drill results within that zone, but you can see the immense amount of zinc mineralization around it. So when we look at this, because this all comes to surface, when we think about a conceptual pit here, that halo of vein-style mineralization, which has very favorable processing and intermittently can be very high grade as well, is going to be a significant contributor to the economics of this part of the project. So we're not stuck to mining just that discrete high grade zone. We also have this great, fantastic endowment of this lower grade zone around it as well. And as if that's not enough, I think, we refer to Mac Pass as a district. That is an often abused term in this industry. Everyone likes to talk about district scale project, district scale potential, etc. But we have 4 known deposits here. We have signs of another 5 to 10 more. Some are soil anomalies, some are outcrop, some are geophysical targets, others are combinations of all of those. This is a true district. The major fault that goes through here, the Hess fault, was a growth fault 400 million years ago. The intersection of that fault with second order faults at a certain periodicity, about 5 kilometers, seems to be the driver of the fluid flow that produces these deposits. So we recognize, it's 5 kilometers from Tom to Jason, another 5 to end zone, 10 kilometer jump to boundary zone, although interestingly some targets in between boundary and end zone as well. There's definitely more here. We see, like, if people are familiar with the term glacial erratic, which is these boulders that are dragged by glaciers, sometimes 100 meters or 100 kilometers, depending on the size of the glacier, and they're called erratics because they don't belong where you find them. There's nothing like them around them. Well, we see glacial erratics in the valley here. They could be the size of this, not quite the size of the stage, but, about 1 meter cubed of massive sulfides, like ultra high grade boulders that we know from ice direction do not come from any of the known deposits. So we know for sure that there are other deposits here. Now, the challenge of finding them in glacial erratics is perhaps the glacier has scraped them off and sent them to the ocean. We hope not, but we think there's ample potential here. So, really what we're trying to focus on in 2024 is, yes, step outs at Tom, Jason, Boundary. Those 3 all have significant resource potential beyond what we'll publish this year. But it's also starting to look at this blue sky potential further west on the property, where this trend continues and where there's significant indications that there might be more zinc deposits. So it's going to be a good drill season for us in 2024. Should have lots more stellar results, as well as hopefully some really exciting exploration success. And next door is our Mactung project. And when I mean next door, I mean literally next door. So you can see Mactung abuts right up against the Mac Pass project, which is really the driving force behind us buying it. That this is a industry where it's not always easy to sell a zinc project to investors, and I was not itching to get into an even more obscure metal. But the opportunity here was clear. The previous owner of this, North American Tungsten, operated a mine called Cantung southwest of our project area here, or southeast, I should say. They went bankrupt as they were nearing the final stages of permitting Mactung. So they had taken it through the environmental assessment. They were looking to engage in final licensing and get construction underway. This was going to be their crown jewel. It was going to be the greatest tungsten mine in the world. And they, unfortunately, as a company, did not live to see that happen. So this sat with the government for about 7 years. They tried repeatedly to sell Mactung and Mactung together, hoping someone would take on the liability at Mactung and restart that, and then eventually develop Mactung. We convinced them that Mactung, as far as I can tell, is largely a boat anchor, and that it was not going to be of interest to anyone, and that's what happened out of their final process on it. So they did agree to sell the Mactung project to us directly. And tungsten is unique. Now, I mean, it's unique market-wise, and it's also unique in terms of its physical properties. So it is the third densest metal, being slightly denser than gold. It is the hardest of all metals, and as tungsten carbide is second only to diamond in terms of hardness. My ring is actually tungsten carbide. I bought this before I picked up this project, a bit of a coincidence, in part because as a geologist, a tungsten carbide ring means you can handle rocks and not scratch your ring. It also means that as a contrast to a gold ring, this cost me $25 on Amazon, which was about my budget for my wedding ring when we got married. So it's heavy, it's hard, and it's high temperature. So it has the highest melting point of any metal as well. So this means in lots of applications, so manufacturing, like in terms of machining particularly, mining, logging, electronics, aerospace, etc. One or more of these properties makes it absolutely essential and irreplaceable. And it's also incredibly critical in defense. Now, 85% of tungsten comes from China, and this is not processing. This is mine supply. So 85% of tungsten is mined in China, another 4% in Russia. So the two of them, between them, have an absolute stranglehold on the global tungsten market. And you can imagine this gives the U.S. defense industry fits, thinking about how essential tungsten is to the defense contractors, and then they basically have almost no Western suppliers of it. So the U.S. government highlighted tungsten as one of the key concerns for defense supply chains, one of their top 3 concerns for defense supply chains. And in fact, because of the way the U.S. Defense Production Act, et cetera, work, they consider Canadian projects effectively American. I mean, maybe that's a bit creepy in some senses, depending on how you look at it, but in terms of their ability to deploy capital and engage in partnership. So actually just the 2024 National Defense Authorization Act, these details announced in December 2023, has a couple of very important parts to it that is highly relevant to us. One, the National Defense Stockpile is now, which has basically depleted their tungsten, has the right to engage in up to 10-year offtake arrangements with mining companies, and Section 152 as well, is that they're allowed to do advanced procurement, effectively pay in advance for metal. So this is, like whether you're talking about tungsten, rare earths, graphite, et cetera, there's a whole series of metals and products that are absolutely dominated by China supply. If we want Western production of these things, and you're starting to mandate Western production, so the U.S. has mandated that defense contractors from 2026 onwards do not buy many of these things from China or Russia origin. So that's great to do, but if there's no supply, that leaves them a bit stranded. So I think what we're going to see is ultimately a partial bifurcation in prices, where you're going to see a price premium for non-China origin metal, whether that's rare earths, whether that's tungsten, et cetera, or you're going to see some sort of maybe complete separation of pricing, because it's the only way to manage these mandates. And I think that's going to make huge difference to many of these Western suppliers of these metals. Mactung now situated to uniquely fill this gap. This is a very special tungsten project. We published a resource in June last year. You can see it below there. The open pit potential pretty significant, as well as underground. 41 million tons indicated, 12.5 million tons inferred, ranging from 0.6 to 0.7% tungstate. In context, tungstate, which is tungsten trioxide, that's how it's priced. It is priced by 10 kilos because I guess they had to be different. But it's about, in terms of ton per ton, it's about $35,000 US per ton. So it's about twice the cost of nickel. So a 0.6 to 0.7% plus tungsten grade is a very, very healthy grade. So much so that when you look at the global sort of chart of tungsten projects, and you can see resource size in terms of tonnage at the bottom there, and grade on the y-axis, Mactung is a kind of a bit of an outlier. Like, I mean, not even kind of a bit. It is a massive outlier. There's just nothing like this project. And as Premier Pillay said, this is a unique project because it could be a credible source for North America and has enough metal contained to meet the North American demand for tungsten for sort of, 30, 40, 50 plus years. So, we think that this is the right time for this project, that this is a unique opportunity. We see an opportunity because it's been through the environmental assessment and because we think there's a path forward that can work within the framework of that environmental assessment, that we could start construction in sort of 4-ish years and have a project really that can meet near-term and ultra long-term demand for tungsten. So we're pretty happy with where this is at. So ultimately, why Fireweed? We're best-in-class team, award-winning team. We are going to get an exploration award. Credit to Dr. Jack Milton, our VP Geology, and his excellent team for that award this week. We have extremely strong backers who do great due diligence and who nobody bats 1,000 in this industry, but the Lundin family is pretty good. They're pretty sharp. We have great projects. MacPass is going to have significant resource expansion in the announcement this year of the new resource. That includes the inaugural resource at Boundary. We're going to see, really think that this is going to put this into one of the true premier zinc districts globally. In Mactung, that PEA is going to come out this year. We think this has a massive potential for being a significant global tungsten producer, meeting perhaps 7 to 10% of global demand and everything North America needs for generations. And our Gaina project, a really a greenfields exciting opportunity to drill and find a brand new discovery.